So Lisa, come on up. And while she comes up, we're going to start off with Lisa Scarbath. And many of you do know her through her involvement with SAMA2, but for those of you that may not, Lisa has been a resident artist at Howard County Center for the Arts in Ellicott City, Maryland. She has worked with all different types of materials in community settings, as well as her own personal work. She is one of the 9 artists who were selected for Mosaic Arts International 25's architectural and site-specific installation work. And we are going to have a wonderful talk, very inspirational talk by Lisa Scarbath.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I'm a little nervous, but thank you for sticking around to hear what I have to say, and thank you, Don Marie. So how many people here have been involved with SAMA for 25 years? Since this is the 20, okay, more than, yeah, how about 20 years? Wow, 15 years? The dedication, 10 years? Oh my goodness. 5 years? And how many people, this is your first year? Woo! Wow. It is such a joy to know that we have all found something that we love to do every single day, and that we can get together with our people in a setting like this. So thank you to Don Marie, to Jackie, to the rest of the board, all the volunteers who have made this possible today. Thank you. It's such an honor for me to have been invited to talk about my work, especially since I'm a newbie. This is actually my first in-person SAMA conference. So I am thrilled to have met new friends that I've only seen online, in our little squares of Zoom meetings. And so I'm fangirling over many of you and your work, and honored to be here today. So I'm going to talk to you about two big projects that I'm really proud of, that were special to my heart. But first I'll tell you a little bit about myself. As Don Marie told you, I'm a resident artist at a local art center. I've always been artsy. My mom's an oil painter, dabbled in a little bit of everything. I did stained glass for years, a long time ago. But in 2018, I took my first Mosaic workshop, and I think literally you could see that light bulb go on over my head, like, this is it. I just love the freedom of expression in mosaics, and like Don Marie said, breaking shit up and putting it back together. So in my former career, I was an attorney, like many people here I've met, and then I took time off to have a family, and I went back working part-time as a professor teaching undergrad law classes. My last class that I taught was the fall of 2019, good timing, right? And then I decided to jump into my art full-time. So I applied and got the residency at our local art center, and I've been there since July of 2020, and I'm still there and working at my art every single day, and I just love it. So this is a picture of the art center along with my messy studio. And I'd like to say it gets better than that, but it doesn't. It's an old elementary school, and I have half of a classroom, so I just love the space. But as I said, this is my first in-person SAMA event, but I did attend the online SAMA conference in 2021, and I was so excited to know that there were so many other people out in the world who love mosaics and doing what I wanted to do, or I was starting to do. And I was really moved by several of the stories from the presentations that year. One was Elizabeth Brady's Art from the Ashes, and if you're not familiar, she lives in California, and her community was devastated by wildfires just before that. So she invited people who had been affected by those wildfires to to come and do mosaics and bring pieces of what they could salvage and put them in mosaics. And then also some healing art from our own Sherry back there with the diversity mural in honor of the shooting at a local Orlando nightclub. And then also, in a different track, was a talk by Julie Sperling, probably all familiar with her communion project that's pictured on the right, where she invited many mosaic artists at a SAMA conference. I think people were bringing her items, and she incorporated them into a mosaic. So these ideas were rolling in my head, and I was so inspired after listening to these talks that I wanted to create something along those lines, and I wasn't sure what, but I live in a historic small town called Ellicott City in Maryland. It's a suburb of Baltimore, between Baltimore and DC. And our town was incorporated in 1772, so very old, very historic, and unfortunately has suffered some tragedies. In 2016, we had a 100-year flood. There was so much rain in a short period of time, and at the bottom of the hill of town is a river, and there are 5 small tributaries that come into the town, and so water was just pouring down Main Street, and it was devastated. Well, not 2 years later, we suffered our second 100-year flood, and that's where you can see the pictures that are on the slide now. The town was completely decimated. Residents' lives upturned, businesses destroyed. Those who came back after the first flood, many of them said, we can't do it again. The county had to raise 4 historic buildings at the lower end of town, so just completely changed the character of the town. Except the town was so resilient, and the SAMA conference where I was inspired was 2021, and our 250th anniversary of the town was in 2022. So I thought, okay, how am I gonna bring all this together? And I started talking through it with a non-artistic friend, and I came up with an idea to have people who had any kind of connection to Ellicott City send me items to put into a mosaic that I would create, honoring the resiliency and the history of our town. So I put out a call to send in your stuff and stories, material, durable material that I could incorporate into a mosaic. And every year as a resident artist at our art center, we have a resident visual artist. There are 13 of us, and we have an exhibit for 2 months. And I thought, okay, this is gonna be my project dedicated to Ellicott City. So I have 100 linear inches that I could use. So going with that, I had my friend help me create the marketing materials. I reached out to the EC250 organization, which was planning the year-long festivities celebrating the anniversary of the town, and they endorsed me and helped me spread the word. So what you see are my flyers. I had a counter card, and my youngest daughter, who was probably 28, 19 at the time, and I went door to door to all the businesses that were reopened on Main Street, and I said, this is what I'm doing, and I explained it, and she looks at me and goes, Mom, you need to work on your elevator pitch. That was too long. So I finally got it down, and I created a YouTube video with the help of my older daughter, who does marketing, and the local media got wind of it, and so that helped spread the word. And I started getting contributions of material, and they're so touching. The one that says hope was a little ornament, and that was actually from a fellow resident artist who had gone through both of the floods and was affected by it as well, but she still had hope for our town that it was gonna come back to life. And then I'll talk about the material, the broken china and the fragments in a minute as well. And then you can see people would send in all kinds of things. And I had asked for nothing larger than your fist, because I thought I could break that and incorporate it, but I got all size things. And then with each item, I asked the donor, the contributor, to send in a little story, a line or two, explaining why Ellicott City is special to them. And so the stories were so touching. So things started piling in. They'd drop it off at the art center, they'd mail it in, and before I knew it, I had 80 items, and I was like, uh-oh, this is real now. I really have to create something. So what am I going to create? So in my head, I thought, okay, you know how you go to an amusement park and you see the out-of-scale maps that are emphasizing certain highlights of the parks. And so that's kind of what was in my head, and I was like, well, I don't know how I'm going to manipulate this material. I don't know how realistic I'm going to be. Anyway, so all those thoughts were going in my head. This is an aerial map, just a cartoon map of the area. So I walked around town and I took pictures of some of the historic buildings, and I got an aerial view from a fellow Instagram account and asked for permission to use the photo. I can't draw like many of us, no art background, so I can't draw, I can't paint, but I can take photos, and I photoshopped, this was my version of creating my map. I resized all the photos onto a Word document with the grid background. I think I may have also printed them out to scale and then played with them paper, just we have to play with our hands. So this was the map that I came up with. I connected a couple of the buildings and created a 6-part mosaic. So from my Word document printed out, then I had to scale it up to full size, which I did with poster board and brown paper. So what you see is me standing up on a chair, taking a picture, looking down at my paper patterns there, and I had it within my 100 linear inches. It's about 65 inches from top to bottom. So then I had to get to work. I took my paper patterns and traced them onto my substrate, and I used weedy so it would be nice and sturdy, and cut them out with my little hand saw. And then I prepped the edges with alkaline resistant mesh tape and thin set, tinted black. And I used Laticrete 254 is my favorite. And then I had to also simultaneously work on all the materials that I got and how I was going to incorporate them. So I had this wonderful person who just emailed me at random when she heard about my project and said, "Do you need some help?" And I was like, "Oh yes, please help me." So she has an art background, but a retired preschool teacher, and had all the time in the world, and happy to help, and I just love her to death. She's still with me today, helping whenever she can. So you can see we had piles of envelopes and boxes, and we had to take everything out, and I wanted to be meticulous in my cataloging so that I could thank everybody who participated, because they were trusting me with their stories and their trinkets and their items. So I had a photo booth set up, I numbered each one, photographed it, and then we had to also transcribe what they had written in their handwriting. Some people emailed me, but mostly it was transcribing. And you'll see this, one of the items we got was a little lip gloss tube, and I'll tell you about that story in a second too. So that was a lot of behind the scenes work and going through and editing it. So I had on every page, I had a picture of the item, and then I had their story, and I had them all numbered, and in a separate document, I had who contributed and a list to thank people. But I wanted the stories to be anonymous because some of them were really personal, and I didn't want to have names right there associated with them. So more prep work, I had to decide colors and what materials I had to fill in and what I was going to use. The plan for the project was to have it hanging on the wall in the gallery, so I wasn't sure how these awkwardly shaped pieces were going to hang with the weight of what was going to be on them. So I put in a lot of weedy washers with D-rings on the back, and I had to wire it, so I put some extra on there just in case I had to support one side or the other. So the bottom picture, you can see where the weedy washers are. And that was laid out as it was going to be on the wall. Kind of a visual map of the town from one end to the other, the bottom being where the Patapsco River is at the bottom of town. And again, I wasn't sure how successful, because I'm only 3 years into making mosaics at this point, how how successful I was going to be in making these images recognizable to the public. So I partnered with a local ceramic studio, and they helped me make labels in ceramic. So they had the clay rolled out for me, and I stamped with different fonts names of the areas that I was creating and glazed them so that I incorporated those in the mosaic as well. So then everything's cataloged, my substrates are prepped, and it's time to actually get to work. So I took everything out of their bags, laid it all out on a table in my studio, and started separating. And I put things in groups of colors and textures, and also where they made sense to go. And then I had to prep the materials. So again, I had asked for things the size of my fist, and one thing I got was a glass bowl about this big and about a ½ inch thick. So I just put that in the bag and smashed it and dealt with the pieces. You know, like people think we do. We just smash it randomly, but no. And then the bottom picture is I was cutting a wine glass because one of the stores in town had hosted a celebrity. I think her name was Jodie Benson, the original voice of The Little Mermaid, at her store, and that was a commemorative wine glass. So I had to make sure that the label showed, so I had to cut it just right on my wet saw. So everything's laid out, prepped, and then I wanted to figure out, I needed to spread out the 80 plus items across all 6 pieces, because I didn't want them all in one of the pieces of mosaic and nothing in the others. So that's where I had read through every single story, of course, and I took out pieces that were specific to a certain area, like that the one I told you I would talk about later, the fragments of ceramic, and there was a little figurine, and the story behind that was very personal. The lady who contributed that pile of material had lost her son to suicide years before the floods, and every day she lived downtown and she would walk along the river as part of her grieving process and healing process, and she would pick up things that she would find in the river. Well, after the flood, she found a lot, so she gave them to me, and that little figurine really stood out. So I put that in the river, which is the piece inside. No, I can't see my cursor, but it's up at the top of the river. You'll probably be able to see it. So I put things according to their significance and also their materials and their color. Anything to do with time, I got watch faces or round things, I used those in the clock. So here are the finished pieces. The pictures on the left are my inspiration photos. Right at the bottom of town is the Patapsco River, and at the edge of the river was a working flour mill. It was working till about 4 or 5 years ago, and now it's going to be apartments. So you can see a close-up, the spoon that was found. Friends of mine bought a house right at the edge of the river, a historic house, and restored it, and in their garden they found this silver spoon, so they thought that was a neat thing to contribute. And this is representative of the B&O Railroad, which is the oldest railroad depot in the United States, and it's in our town. And then a historic clock was right near the railroad depot, and it disappeared with the first flood, was reclaimed out of the river, reinstalled, and then the second flood, it completely disappeared. But we found out 2 weeks ago that the county is building another one, and it's going to be put right back in its space, so that's exciting. These 2 images are the historic courthouse, and our art center is actually moving to the courthouse next month, so that's where my studio will be. And the ruins of the Patapsco Female Institute, which was a school for girls that was abandoned in the early 1900s or mid-1900s, and is now an outdoor theater for Shakespeare performances in the spring. And then this is just a view looking down Main Street. The building in the foreground is the Firehouse Museum. So it's really a quaint little town. So if you're in the area, come visit. But I don't know if you can see it. The tube of lip gloss is in the middle of the Main Street in the green area. And that is one of my favorite stories. So the person who contributed that said she was wearing that lip gloss on her first date, which was in Ellicott City. She had her first kiss on the bridge going over the river, and now years later she's married to that person and they have 3 kids. So very, very touching. And this is my version of the Ellicott City sign that's at both ends of town. And in this project, I had everything from plastic, metal, pins, organ pipes, paintbrushes, ceramic teapots, you name it, it was in there. I think the only material I didn't use anywhere was shells, but I have slate, I have glass, glass that was pulled out of the river, concrete, you name it, it's in there somewhere. And then the last 2 buildings in one piece are a historic 1-room schoolhouse and then a cabin that's there as well. And when I had the exhibit up, I got a podium with shelves because there were several items that were contributed that were either too heavy to put in the mosaic or too big and thick. The county executive, of all people, gave me a granite block from the foundation of the courthouse. It was way bigger than my fist. I was like, oh, thank you. I couldn't cut it. I called a stonemason who was like, yeah, it's, I think, $20 per cut. I'm like, I can't do it. Anyway, so that was sitting on the podium. I also had a QR code framed and hanging with the pieces on the wall that goes directly to my website, and the document showing each and every photo of every item along with the story as well. And it was also, I had a binder that people could flip through and see at the exhibit. So the EC250 organization really got into the project as they saw things come in, and it was really exciting. And they hosted an artist talk for me at the gallery. And it was so incredibly touching for me to have people who had contributed that I didn't know at all come to that talk and look at the piece on the wall and search and go, oh, there it is, you know. And sometimes it was somebody gave me a plate and I had to break it up, and that whole plate was the siding of the 1-room schoolhouse. And so it was neat to watch them kind of look, and if they got stuck, I could tell them where their pieces ended up or how they ended up if they couldn't recognize it. So it was really special to me to know that they trusted me with their stories and to do justice by their contributions. And the county executive showed up and he said, we have a big announcement. We are going to put your Mosaic project on Main Street in a window of a county-owned building. And so that was very exciting. And so that's where it stays today. You can see it behind the glass. And there's a poster in the window with the story behind this project and a QR code so everybody can read the stories as well. And in the floor of that window, it's like waist high, I have printouts of some of the items, the stories too. So it's really cool to walk by. And I belong to a gallery that's on Main Street, so I'm always there, and I see people looking, and I'm like, oh, and it's just, it warms my heart to know that the town has pride over this project. I had, as I said, this was my project that became a public work, so I applied for a creativity grant. Maryland is wonderful in giving, well, they were, it's funding now, who knows, in awarding grants. And so I was awarded a grant to help fund this project. But in the end, the EC250 organization purchased it from me and then donated it to the Howard County Historical Society. And hopefully it will be installed in the new art center in the old courthouse, so fingers crossed. So my second project that I want to tell you about is very similar, but I got to build on and improve the unique project that I did for Ellicott City. The next one is in a neighboring county called Harford County in Maryland. And this one was a little different because I responded to a call for art by the Harford 250 organization. So they had they had actually put out for public vote a list of titles, of themes of the public artwork that they were sponsoring to commemorate the county's 250th anniversary. So the theme was rooted in history, lighting the way to the future. And then I applied to the RFP with the letter of intent. I had to explain my idea for the project and submit past photos of past projects, my resume, and all of that. So I became one of 2 finalists. This project was to be installed outdoors at a park in the county seat. And so they had no structures whatsoever. So in my plan, I had to come up with, where can I put this mosaic? Because I want to do the same sort of project. It's perfect for an anniversary. So I had a friend help me, and we planned outdoor trailhead kiosks. So you'll see pictures of that. So the other finalist was a sculptor, and he had a fantastic design. It was like a flame that was resembling the outline of the county map in reverse. Anyway, so stiff competition. We had to make a 1-minute video that I'm gonna play for you, and it's cringy to hear myself talk, but we had to put out a 1-minute video explaining our project, and then the winner was gonna be chosen by public vote. So we'll see if it plays. Might take a second to buffer. Uh-oh. Not sure why the audio is not working. Just a second, make sure. No, it's not.
We're gonna try one more time.
Hi, this is Scarbath. Let's celebrate Harford's 250th anniversary together by creating a mosaic. History is about more than facts and dates. It's about people, relationships, and memories. I want to incorporate your stuff and stories into mosaic images reflecting Harford County. For example, a pebble reminding you of a hike to the King and Queen Sea, a piece of your grandma's broken china, or a pin from an Ironbirds game will become part of the barn, or a piece of the map. Along with the items, your recorded memories will be embedded as interactive sound bites into the artwork. Waving a photo with a mosaic, the viewer can hear your story. My design represents all parts of Harford County, past, present, and future. Together, we can make this public art piece truly a community celebration.
Well, sorry it wasn't loud enough, but that's probably a good thing. I'm going to tell you more about it anyway. So that was just the promotional video that the public could vote on. And my husband is from Harford County. His sister lives there. She's a soccer mom. So, let's just say, I won the project. So I had numbers on my side for that one. So this project was different because I had, from the beginning, the support of the organization behind me. So I already had my design, obviously, made for the video. And so I went back and forth with the committee, and we had to tweak the design a little bit. Everything was okay except for panel number 3. They wanted me to change it a little bit, the background. So this was the plan for the final design. And then I had the help of a marketing company, and the Harford 250 organization marketing the project. So they created all the marketing materials. The libraries were the donation spots, the historical society. Harford County is about, the Bel Air, the seat, is about an hour from my house, 50 minutes to an hour. So I was really thankful to have this whole team to work with, and they were absolutely fantastic. So you can see some of the items I got. Everything you can think of. People gave paper that of course I couldn't use, but they gave plastic pins, memorabilia. The bottom right, you'll see in every single panel that blue tile. Somebody who moved into a historic home found a whole crate of backsplash tile in their basement. I was like, yes, material, I love it, I love it. So, and just like before, everybody submitted their stories. This time we were a little bit neater. We actually had a form. Instead of just getting Post-it notes with little scribble on it, I had names written. But still, I had to transcribe everything because it was all typed or handwritten instead of emailed to me. So if I ever do this again, email's the way to go. So we had collections. So I applied in December of 2023. The voting went live in the spring of 2024. No, 2022, 23. And then collection went all during the summer. And so I more than doubled what I had gotten from Ellicott City because this was a whole county-wide. And again, we were explaining to people what I was doing, that please send us your trinkets, your material, durable items to put into a mosaic, along with your stories of why you're connected to the county and how it's special to you. So these are the folks from the Historical Society. I went up and picked up boxes and boxes and envelopes of things, and I thought, okay, I know how much work this is this time. I'm enlisting more help. So Helen was back again helping me, and I contacted the local high school, the Honor Society, and I said, I know your kids need volunteer hours, bring them over. So I had 3 high school volunteers who came and helped transcribe, and we had a whole assembly line. I took pictures, we numbered everything, and we categorized them, and you can see the documents in the top right, those are all the stories I got. The bottom right picture is my lovely mother who offered to help transcribe every single story for me, so kudos to her. Yes, very nice. She's my #1 fan, and that really helped. And so in my design, I had my husband take me around the county and say, okay, give me a deep dive, help me feel what the county is like, what it is growing up. So that's how I chose the images, and I'll show you the finished panels and explain that. But again, I knew the size. I was doing 3x5 3D panels to make it easy on myself and to install into these kiosks, the trailhead kiosks. But again, I can't draw, I'm not freehanding. So I went and took pictures of the places that I was going to use as reference, and I had paper over my Wheatie panels, and I had a projector to project up the image, and I traced over it onto the paper. And then back in my studio, I had the paper on top of the Wheatie again, but in between I had carbon paper. And I traced over the images again onto my Wheatie, and then I had to go over with a Sharpie so that I could actually see it. And that's how I created my designs. And again, I had to prep the materials. I got full bricks, I got just all kinds of things. And as problem solvers, that was the part that was really fun, figuring out how to break these things down. You can see my mom again in the middle. We were cutting up, there was a giant plaque of a pretzel embedded in this plastic, and very cool. We got it cut in half, you'll see it in one of the panels. And then an aluminum cup. So it was very challenging. Corks, I had to boil so I could cut. Bricks I smashed. So again, I did the same process. I laid everything out, and then so I could see what I had, and I picked based on significance first of where the items should go based on the images I was creating, and then also I wanted a good spread of where the items were going to go throughout these 4 panels, and then by color and texture and shape and all of that went into it. So a lot of playing with it, but it was good because I had the paper patterns in addition to the substrate. I could lay it out, and I had one on each table and kind of go back and forth. I also kept notes of what the item number was. I had sticky notes on everything so that I knew in my head I wasn't going to have one document with 180 items. I was going to have 4 PDFs. So when you look at the first panel and you see an item, you could just go to that PDF document and know the story behind that. So I had to divide it all up. And I didn't want to create the lettering in Mosaic, just too time consuming. And so I decided to use epoxy sculpt. And I got 2-inch cookie cutters. I rolled it out like cookie dough and stuck the cookie cutters in, pried them up and put them to the side to let them cure. And that worked out well. I used a second piece of wheatie to raise them up and then adhered the epoxy sculpt letters into the tinted thin set. So this is, let's see if this works. This is just an evolution of one of the panels from laying it out. This is the historic courthouse's cupola. But in the bottom, in the black portion, under the arch, is an iPod. And like I had everything. So here are the final panels. This is panel 1, and it shows the agricultural nature of the county with the barn and the field in front of it. Some of the materials in the barn are brick. There's a horseshoe that you can see, cork in the silo, a piece of aluminum in the silo roof, a plastic cup, a mug that I had to cut in half. I have astroturf. Oh, I forgot to say, I have mirror, and I did this in my Ellicott City project as well. I have a little bit of mirror in every single panel because to me, the pieces were not only homage to the history of each location, but also to the people and reflecting the people who are looking at the images. So that's why I have the mirror incorporated. I like a little sparkle in there too. So I used, somebody gave a reusable shopping bag. I cut it into strips and have it underneath the green in the field. The brick, there's slate, there's wood, stones, you name it, it's in there. A little stained glass bird in the top. The second image on that panel is a historic covered bridge. This is the second panel, and it's a historic lighthouse at a town on the, I think it's the Chesapeake Bay at that point. Again, with some mirror and all the different materials that I got. There are lighter blue cubes in the background, and that was actually a can koozie that I cut up. It's foam and stuck in. So you name it. This is, oh, did I talk about, and then they have a clock, much like the Ellicott City clock. I didn't like, this isn't the actual final picture. I didn't like, there was no contrast between that blue background and the black of the clock, so I actually outlined it in another silver chain to make it stand out a little bit after this photo. So this is the historic courthouse's cupola that the county asked that I include in the design. And in the background, as I said, the county is very agricultural, and they have a tour of barn quilts. So on the side of barns all around the county, they have quilt patterns painted on the barn. So that's representative of one of the quilts. And down the very bottom right, you can see half of that plaque with the pretzel in it that was like 2 inches thick to cut, but we did it. I also used Laticrete for this, and I tinted it with some tints from Sherry Warner Hunter, some pigments. But I did find, I finished early, and I checked everything, and some things were falling off, the plastic items. So I had to go back, and I used an external adhesive caulk to make sure that everything was gonna stay on. And then this was my fourth panel. It's a picture of the Maryland flag. If you don't know, we Marylanders are crazy about our flags. We wear it because it's so cool. But in the middle of the flag is an outline of the county map. And so this was kind of my catch-all panel, you can see the neon pink little frisbee in the middle would not have gone anywhere else. So it was good to have one design that would take all of the things that didn't fit elsewhere. On every panel, I had a tile that I printed out a QR code that goes to my website where the stories are located, and I just put a marine grade shellac over top of it after I adhered it to the tile. But maybe someday I can replace it with Rachel's QR code class and do that. So anybody can scan the QR code and it'll take you to the stories on my website. And this is what it looks like on the website. You pull it up and then you can scroll through the document. So one really cool aspect that I added to this project that I can't take credit for, a friend who brought her husband to see the Ellicott City project, he said, you know what you could do? You could add sound bites to this. And I was like, okay, tell me more. So he did. So what I did, you know the tap to pay technology, when you go to a store and you just tap your phone, Apple Pay, or with your credit card. I use that same technology. So I bought small discs, plastic discs about the size of a quarter, called NFC discs. And on that, I could program it to go to use SoundCloud. So in each panel, I selected several stories that we then spoke into the phone, made a file, uploaded to SoundCloud, and embedded in this chip. So you can take your phone to any of the white circles within the Mosaic, tap it, a link comes up, and you hit play, and you can hear the story. So it made the project more accessible to a lot of people. So again, this was a public art project by the Harford 250, so they had a big reveal before the Mosaic was installed. So we took all 4 panels and put them in their armory, and there was a talk and a dedication and everything. So I got to tell the story. And that, again, was the coolest feeling to have so many people come up and look and go, okay, what is this and where is this? And there's my piece, I see it. And they take such ownership and pride, even though they didn't make it. So it was super special to me. And again, my husband grew up in Harford County, so that lacrosse trophy, his parents started the rec lacrosse program in the county, and so that was our contribution in the project. And I was really lucky. So I initially was in charge of creating the stands for this mosaic. So I was gonna have a friend taken out of my budget to make the kiosks. But the county was so excited about it that they took over building the kiosks. And thank goodness, because they built a much, much better structure than I ever would have. So as I said, the original location for this project was at this park. And it was going to be at the top corner, but it's hard to see, but on the busy street. But the county thought about it, and they moved it back off the street onto this access road that goes to their county office building. So this park is situated between a high school and an apartment complex. And now they've backed it up off of the road into kind of a secluded spot. And can anybody see what's wrong with my kiosks? With it installed, there's no glass covering it. So you can imagine what happened. So it was installed mid-April 2024. 2 weeks later, I go to a conference in Eugene, and I get a call. Things are starting to go missing out of the project. I know. I was devastated. One of the items was super special to me. My brother-in-law had contributed it, spoke his own story. It was his class ring, and yeah, and even worse, so between him doing that and installation, he took his own life. Yes. So then his ring went missing, and you know, I am floored. So the minute I get back, my daughter and I went, and we got heavy-duty fiberglass. I mean, not fiberglass, acrylic. Plexiglass, that's what I'm thinking, thank you. Plexiglass to cover it, you know, like 1/2 inch thick. And that helped, and I repaired what I could. And then the plexiglass was ripped off. Just devastating. So fast forward a year, and the county, the people I worked with were all fabulous and helpful. And they said, we are gonna move these. And their initial idea was to cut the kiosks off, and they poured 4-foot footers in these things. I mean, they are sturdy. The Mosaics are back to back and enclosed in a frame. And they were like, we're gonna cut them. Do you really wanna do that? Just take them out and put them on something else or put them on a wall. So eventually they did, and in July of this year, they were moved and framed, and this is a wall in the Harford County Historical Society.
Yay.
So yay. So I spent a whole full day on eBay and Amazon and everywhere else I could trying to find pieces to replace the items that were taken. And I was 98% successful, so I'm very happy about that. They are restored almost to their original glory and on the wall where they are safe now. So that's very exciting. And they do kind of an I Spy when people come in, they have a binder there that people look and read the story. So it's really touching to know that the community has embraced these projects as well. So I really appreciate your attention. It's such an honor for me to be here and talk about my work with so many people whose work I admire. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Does anyone have a question for Lisa? We have a couple minutes. I cut into her time this morning, so. Any questions? All right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll start again at the top of the hour with our next presenter.